Well, people are just incredibly angered at Joel Osteen, who may be the most hated Christian in Christianity, hated by both non-Christians and Christians alike. I think that's the case with him. So apparently he could do no right this weekend. And here's the thing here. So when something like this happens, like what ought a church to do?
Open their doors and help people.
That depends
At
if people
least
get
your
to the church.
congregation. Like, your congregation is supposed to be your family, the Christian family. You would think that they would, come together to help each other, but their doors were closed.
Well, here's the narrative that the media gave us, and that I think is a lie. I don't think there was never anything along the lines of someone came up to the door and started beating, and they're like, "No, we're closed," which is what they would have us to believe.
Right?
It never happened. It's not a thing. So, but from what I understand, is Joel Osteen, the church, like the pastoral staff, they already had plans in place of how to help people, opening their doors, like making it a big place with beds and everything else wasn't necessarily one of their plans because of the history of that building flooding. And apparently there was a little bit. It's the equivalent of a church basement. It's not like their stage was underwater or anything like that, but there was some stuff that was underwater.
I saw somebody else say that was a parking garage nearby.
Well, I mean, I've seen this church, and like the parking garage. I mean, it's what's Coliseum parking garage that you would usually see beside. So yeah, that could be flooded. But I saw some other pictures where they had ripped out some drywall and all that, and that was like, so that's a little bit.
There are also issues like when Katrina happened. When was Katrina?
2005.
Okay, so weren't there issues then of like when they let him into the wherever the stadium that there were a lot of issues with like that whole situation as well.
Yeah.
There was
security, victimization.
Yeah, so I'm sure, it's not like, I mean, I know they have a big staff, but they're not necessarily staffed for that.
For flood crisis.
Right. So what you would have to do is have either the city come in and do that, and there was no plans with the city apparently. So so I don't know. I just feel like, I mean, I don't give a hang whether Joel, did or didn't do anything or whatever, but I'm just interested in this whole media narrative thing. But that now they think that they can shame someone, because I saw them start saying these are the people who said shaming isn't the answer. Like a couple years back, now it's like, hey, we shamed him. Shaming works.
Right.
It's like that's not cool.
I think I learned a lesson about media because the initial story was, mean old Joel shut his doors and didn't let anybody in.
Right.
And I said, that's terrible. What a terrible person.
Were you reactionary?
Yeah, exactly. And then the story came out that, well, it's not exactly like that. And then this came out, this other thing that said, well, the basement was flooded. And then something came out and said, well, the basement wasn't really that flooded. And then something came out and said, well, Joel always had a plan to help him. And then something came out and said, well, people were actually coming in. It's like I hate to sound like Trump, but there's so much fake news.
Yeah.
That you literally, you have to withhold your judgment. And, even as a Christian, that's kind of a good thing to withhold your judgment and say, look, I'm not in Houston. I'm definitely not at Joel Osteen's church.
Yeah.
I don't know a thing about the situation. So who am I to call the guy anything or weigh in on the subject? But Nick's right, and I didn't even think about that.
What did I do?
Good job.
So half of the panels in agreement. But I got to thinking, and I have a lot of my own ideas about church and what church should be and what church should do with the community and all that. But as it stands, as churches are now, they're tax exempt, liable properties, this and that. If you let all kinds of people in there, you're opening yourself up to lawsuits.
Yes.
The closure of the church. I mean, there's a lot of legalities to consider.
Right.
As a church, you probably shouldn't consider those things before people. But let's face it, that's the position the church is in.
But you don't have a church if you don't do that.
Exactly. So if you want to look at overhauling the church and why we ask those questions and have those priorities, that's a good conversation. But until then, I think those are valid reasons, because what happened in that stadium at Katrina was disastrous.
Well, I think
it was pretty bad.
This whole thing is case in point of One group of people making do what? What'd you say?
It's like, was that what I was right on? Okay.
This whole thing is people making. They define how they think things should be and expect you to abide by their thing they just made up. That's what we're dealing with these days. And so someone said, "Hey, how come they didn't do it? Did anyone want to? Was there? Because I never saw pictures or a story of anyone banging on the doors and saying, "Hey, like they turned away 1,000 people." Never happened. So nothing like that ever happened. But they just said, they painted it like that. Then they said, "How could he not do that? Like just some sort of moral outrage?" Because it all goes back to they hate him because he's rich.
Well, yeah, and they hate him, so no matter what he does, it's going to be bad. So,
Right.
He was very much in a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation because it's that situation where they say, "Hey, it's flooding. How come you're not opening your doors?" And then he goes, "Okay, we'll open the doors." They go, "Why did you wait so long?"
Yeah.
It's like,
and then somebody gets hurt, or
how about no?
people get robbed, or people get assaulted, and then they say, "Well, why didn't you have security on board?"
Right.
And then if he has security on board, they're like, "Why are you policing your church?" You know, it's just if the public has an opinion of you, you're pretty much just done.
You'll enjoy the show.